Good evening students, welcome back to Yupp Master, and these are our foundation courses. We've begun a new platform where you're able to come on the platform and 24/7 you're able to post your doubts anytime with us. I personally for biology will be there and my colleagues will be there for all the other subjects as well. So children, keep watching our lectures and keep also solving the Saturday test that we are posting for you all. And just to practice for those tests, since yesterday we have started our lectures with the MCQ revisions of them. Alright, so let's have another practice session today with solving some other MCQs which are a little bit tougher than those which we have seen in yesterday's lecture. Alright, so let's begin with today's lecture and we're gonna be straight jumping in towards the MCQs. Alright. So let's begin. Remember we were talking about the chapter respiration, human respiration as well as in plants too. Alright, so now let's see the question. Gases diffuse over the respiratory surface because. Why do gases diffuse over the respiratory surface? Now, remember this, what was this indicating? PO2 indicated that we are talking about the partial pressure of oxygen and this would be the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Okay, so we're talking about partial pressures. Why does diffusion happen? Diffusion would be basically going from a higher concentration gradient to its lower concentration gradient area. Alright, so what is actually going to be diffusing? Look at here, they're talking about oxygen. Now when we talk about oxygen at the respiratory surface, from where to where does it go? Doesn't that oxygen travel from the alveoli into the blood? Yes, so the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli has to be greater than that in the blood so that oxygen can travel from alveoli to blood. So what's written here? The partial pressure of oxygen is more in alveoli than in blood, which is correct because that is what will cause it to go from alveoli to blood. Remember the chain that we had done. Okay, that chain went somewhat like, alright, let's talk about the surfaces first. First we talk about the atmosphere. After the atmosphere, the next location we were looking upon was the alveoli. After the alveoli, the third location we looked upon was in the blood. Alright. And finally, we saw the partial pressures at the level of the tissues. Alright, now let's see how the gases are diffusing one after the other. From atmosphere to alveoli, what happens? Partial pressure, let's talk about only oxygen first. Partial pressure of oxygen being more in the atmosphere and less in the alveoli, that's why oxygen travels from atmosphere to alveoli, from alveoli to blood and from blood to tissues. Whereas when we talk about carbon dioxide, it is exactly the opposite. Carbon dioxide will be going from tissues to blood, from blood to alveoli and from alveoli to the atmosphere. So this is the way that carbon dioxide is going to be flowing. Alright, so this is our correct answer, that partial pressure of oxygen is more in alveoli than in the blood. How much percentage of carbon dioxide is carried by hemoglobin as carbamino-haemoglobin? So let's remember this. What was this all about? This was all about in external respiration. There was a part called as removal of carbon dioxide. So when we talk about external respiration, there were different parts to it. Which were those? When we talk about external respiration, the first thing involved here was exchange of gases. Alright. Second part involved here was the formation of oxyhaemoglobin, and the third part was removal of carbon dioxide. Okay, now if you remember, the carbon dioxide was removed in 3 different ways. Which were those ways? Let's remember those. Carbon dioxide removal, first contribution was done 7% by plasma. Alright, 70%. Do you remember this? It was in the form of bicarbonates. maximum in the form of bicarbonates. Alright, and the last one 20 to 25% in the form of when the hemoglobin is going to combine with that carbon dioxide to form carbamino-haemoglobin. Alright, so this is the way, or these are the three ways that we had learned for removing carbon dioxide from the blood and taking it all the way to the lungs. Alright, so over here how much is carried as carbamino-haemoglobin? Wouldn't it be 20 to 25%? All. Moving on to the next question. Oxyhaemoglobin is converted into hemoglobin during internal respiration because, now when we talk about internal respiration, this means that we are talking at the level of the tissues, right? At the level of the tissues, why does blood reach the tissues? Because the tissues require oxygen. And who is the oxygen carrier in our body? Isn't it hemoglobin? Well, in the very beginning, when we saw a little while back in external respiration, hemoglobin caught hold of the oxygen to form oxyhaemoglobin. Why was oxyhaemoglobin formed? So that whenever the tissue requires oxygen, hemoglobin can take it to the tissues, alright. But if hemoglobin is going to hold on to that oxygen really tightly, then the tissues would never get it. That's why oxyhaemoglobin which is formed is a compound which is highly unstable, which means that it will give off oxygen as and when the body will require it. So that's why we say that oxyhaemoglobin is converted to hemoglobin during internal respiration, means that where the tissues are, over there it will lose the oxygen molecules so that it can provide it to the tissues and it will be converted back into only hemoglobin. So the reason behind that is because oxyhaemoglobin is unstable, alright, means that it is ready to give off the oxygen molecules as and when required by our tissues. Alright, coming to the next question. About 97% of the oxygen is transported by RBCs, okay. The remaining 3% is, how is the remaining 3% traveling? Remember, whenever oxygen enters into the body, out of that 100% of oxygen, first of all 100% of however much oxygen has entered into the body, that total amount of oxygen is going to first enter into blood. Okay, when it enters into the blood, around 97% is taken up by RBCs, whereas 3% remains in the liquid part of blood, and the liquid part of blood is called as plasma. So, plasma is the liquid part of blood and that is what is carrying the remaining 3% of oxygen to the whole body parts. Alright, coming to the next question. Chloride shift occurs in response to. Do you remember what chloride shift was all about? Well, let's just remember it with the help of the diagram that we had drawn when we studied about the chloride shift. Okay, so right now I'm going to be just drawing a slide. Let's say this is just, we're talking about a small area of our blood. Okay, now let's say in this area, this here outside the liquid part of blood, I am drawing it, or rather I am drawing it as a straw colored or a slightly yellow colored fluid, because that is actually the color that plasma is. What is plasma? Plasma is a liquid part of blood. Alright. Now what I will do is in the middle I am just going to draw one huge RBC so that we can know what all things are happening inside this RBC. Alright. So there is the plasma and then there is the RBC. Now what are we going to talk about here? Only we are talking about from the tissue. Okay, carbon dioxide is taken into the blood. Correct? Now once it enters into the blood, it is then going to enter into the RBC. So now this carbon dioxide enters into the RBC. RBC is a cell with cytoplasm, and if it has cytoplasm is maximally made up of water. So we see here that the carbon dioxide is going to combine with water. What is it going to form? This is going to be forming carbonic acid. And how do we write that? It's written as H2CO3. And immediately as the carbonic acid is formed, it is going to be dissociating, and it will dissociate into H plus ions and HCO3 minus. Alright. Now what happens to this? Well, The H plus ion is going to be taken up by protein. Which protein over here? Hemoglobin. HCO3 minus is going to come out and it enters back into the plasma. So now the carbon dioxide which was there entered into the RBC. Now it is just in the form of carbonic acid, in the form of bicarbonate, and coming out of that RBC, entering back into the plasma. Now when it enters back into the plasma, from the starting, what is present in the plasma? Aren't there salts present like KCl and NaCl? Alright, so now from this KCl and NaCl, the chloride ion is going to be separated. Hence, we have the formation of sodium bicarbonate and potassium bicarbonate. But then what's happening? This is going to be leaving our chloride ion alone. So now, in order to maintain, because the bicarbonate is coming out and the bicarbonate is coming out and joining to form these two. So what happens to this chloride ion? That chloride ion has to be shifted and it has to be taken inside the RBC. Why does this happen? This is happening in order to maintain the ionic equilibrium over there. Okay, so here the ionic equilibrium will be maintained because of the chloride shifting inside the RBC. This shift of chloride in response to the bicarbonate ions is what we are going to be calling as, what will we call it as? This is what we call as the chloride shift or you may call it as hamburger phenomenon. Alright. Now what happens ultimately, let's just finish this since we have given it a start. Ultimately these bicarbonate ions will be taken and it will be given to the lungs. Alright. So now here coming back to our question, chloride shift occurs in response to the bicarbonate ions. Okay. Next. Oxyhaemoglobin dissociates at. Where does oxyhaemoglobin, when would oxyhaemoglobin dissociate? Oxyhaemoglobin dissociation itself means that the tissue is not having enough oxygen. That is why the hemoglobin molecule has to let go of certain oxygen molecules. So if I am saying that the tissue doesn't have enough oxygen, either you can say that the oxygen level there is low, or you may also say that the carbon dioxide level there is high. Alright, so let's see what options are given to us over here. First, they have given us the very first option that we spoke about, low partial pressure of oxygen in the tissues, which is the correct answer. High would be actually wrong. This should have been high. Okay, if you're talking about carbon dioxide, it should have been high. And it is, how can it be irrespective of partial pressure of oxygen? It has to be with relation to oxygen present over there. So our correct option would be low partial pressure of oxygen in the tissues. Next question. A molecule of hemoglobin carries oxygen molecules. How many hemoglobin for one oxygen molecules? Okay, do you remember this? We spoke about the structure of hemoglobin. When we talk about hemoglobin, hemoglobin can be divided into two regions. One is heme, the second one being globin. Okay, so now here we have heme plus globin. What exactly is globin? Globin means nothing but the globulin protein, and heme is that part which is going to be carrying, or which is rather made up of the iron. Alright, so here there are 4 heme molecules, alright, and there are 4 globin, alright, 4 globin chains. Out of those 4 globin chains, 2 chains are alpha chains, 2 chains are beta chains. So over here, let's just club this here, that 4 heme molecules are there, and the second component, this over here, are the 4 globin chains. Alright, now out of these, what you are seeing over here, okay, these here, these can be considered as our 2 alpha chains, alpha and alpha. These 2, the blue one and the purple one, these are the beta chains. So over here we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 are our globulin 4 chains. Then look for the heme molecules. Can you see this structure over here? This structure here, 1, 2, 3 and the fourth one. These here 4 of them are indicating the heme molecules, and children, each heme molecule has the capacity to carry one molecule of oxygen. So in a total, every hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 molecules of oxygen, and that's exactly what we just saw over here. So coming back to our question, that a molecule of hemoglobin carries oxygen molecules. How many of them? 4 of them. Okay, let's use another color. Yeah, 4 oxygen molecules per hemoglobin. Next, very interesting question. Now, do you remember that I had told you when we studied that when we studied the beginning in human respiration, that the RBCs are getting the red color because of hemoglobin, which means that hemoglobin is a pigment. Okay, so when we say hemoglobin, okay, this hemoglobin is the reason why our blood is red. Okay, which means that it is a pigment. Not only is it a pigment, it is a pigment which is having the capacity to carry oxygen. That's why hemoglobin is going to be called as the respiratory pigment. Respiratory pigment. Alright, and that is giving which color? It's giving a red color. Now, when we see certain animals like molluscs, okay, now these molluscs are not having hemoglobin. In fact, their blood is having a slightly bluish tinge to it. Now that bluish tinge, and this is a red color. Why is this red in color? Ever thought of that? It's red in color because it has the element of iron in it. It is the iron which is bringing about the red color. Remember, iron, it was present in heme part. So heme part of hemoglobin has iron, and it is the iron which is giving red color. Alright, okay. But then when we talk about certain molluscs, these molluscs are having the respiratory pigment which is a bluish color. In fact, it contains copper, and copper is making that slightly bluish in color, and that's why we call that not as hemoglobin, but now we will call it as hemocyanin, because cyan means blue. Okay, remember back to your color, cyan means blue, and these are the respiratory pigments in mollusk. Okay, so here hemocyanin would be the correct answer. Blue copper protein complex contained in some molluscs in their plasma for oxygen transport. So again, even this is a respiratory pigment. So now you know the names of 2 respiratory pigments. Which are they? First you know hemoglobin, and second you know hemocyanin. Alright. Next, increase in carbon dioxide concentration shall cause. What does that cause? Let's see here. Carbon dioxide, whenever carbon dioxide is going to increase, naturally this means that you will have the urge to breathe. Okay, whenever you feel that you have, let's say you try to hold your breath really for a very long time. Okay, you say ke dam laga ke I'm not going to leave my breath, I'm going to hold it all the time. And what happens? Are you able to actually perform this activity? You know something, when you hold your breath for a very long time, you get an urge to breathe again. Now, why is this urge coming? You might think that, ma'am, the urge comes because oxygen in the body is low. Well, children, oxygen actually has nothing to do with this urge. The urge that you constantly get to take a breath is due to the levels of carbon dioxide, not oxygen. So every time that you feel like taking a breath, and every time that we are breathing naturally, involuntarily, it's because of the levels of carbon dioxide. So naturally, if the levels of carbon dioxide are even rising higher and higher, then what will happen? Your breathing will become even more faster. Yes or no? So let's see over here. Increasing carbon dioxide concentration. Would you think it will increase in carbon dioxide? Do you think slower and shallower? Not at all. Slower and deeper. Slow has nothing to do with this. The whole breathing will become faster, and it will become deeper breathing, and not at all. So all the effects of breathing, okay, whether it is slow, whether it is fast, deep, faster. All of this is brought about by changes in the level of carbon dioxide, not at all changes in the level of oxygen. In fact, if you'd like to add to it, along with carbon dioxide, okay, even H plus ions are going to be affecting the rate of breathing, okay, because if carbon dioxide levels are increasing, then H plus ions also have increased. But oxygen, when we talk about oxygen, has no role play in how much or how fast are you breathing. All of that is depending only and only upon carbon dioxide, okay. Next, in carbon monoxide poisoning, okay, in carbon monoxide poisoning, there is, what is there? First, carbon monoxide, okay, carbon monoxide is indicated by CO, okay. There is increase in carbon dioxide concentration, not at all. Decrease in oxygen availability, yes, there would be decrease. Why is that? Because actually what will happen is that oxygen would be replaced. Actually oxygen would be in the atmosphere, but then the hemoglobin would not be able to take it up. Let's see our third option, decrease in the free hemoglobin. Well, that is true too. What will happen is hemoglobin will not be able to be free because all that carbon monoxide is going to go and attach itself to the hemoglobin. Why is that? Because hemoglobin actually has a much higher affinity. Hemoglobin has an affinity which is much higher to carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide as compared to carbon dioxide or even oxygen, and that too how many times higher? 280 times higher, okay. So hemoglobin has an affinity which is 280 times that of its affinity towards oxygen. So there would be no free hemoglobin for the oxygen to reach over there. Alright. Next, a person starts coughing suddenly while swallowing some food. It could be due to, now why is the coughing happening while swallowing food? It could be due to improper movement of what? Now remember to keep the food going only into the windpipe, into the food pipe and not into the trachea. We have this cartilaginous flap over there, okay, and that flap, do you remember, it was called as the epiglottis. So that epiglottis, if at all there is some improper movement of it, there could be coughing, alright, and this is, if at all the food happens to enter into the trachea, this is what we say could lead to choking also, alright. So here it would be improper movement of the epiglottis, alright. Next, hiccups is due to the activity of, why is hiccups caused? Hiccups are caused due to, in fact, whenever you're having hiccups, just try to imagine what is actually happening in your body. Aren't there those sudden jerky types of breathing that you're taking? Yes or no? So look at here. What's happening here? The diaphragm undergoes jerky incomplete inspiration. Alright, that is what hiccups is all about. That incomplete contraction of the diaphragm which is making it jerky contractions. Alright, let's come to the next question. Asthma. Asthma is characterized by, what exactly is asthma? Isn't asthma all about the bronchioles being already a little inflamed in those of asthmatic patients, and whenever a triggering factor comes in front of them, for example stress, for example smoke, for example dust or even pollen grains, then there are chances that they might enter into the respiratory system and aggravate it. So what will happen? The airway tracts, the bronchioles which are already, for these patients which are already inflamed, they would start getting even more inflamed, and they would start being spasms over there, contractions and relaxations happening, and then there would be secretion of fluid there too, which is the reason why the person finds the breathing to be even more difficult at this time. Okay, so here asthma is characterized by spasm in the bronchial muscles. Alright, let's come to the next question. Oops. The two organisms which breathe only through their moist skin. Now over here, many of the organisms you will see here, you know that they do breathe through skin, for example frog. But in our question, they've written that which breathe only is the important keyword here, through their moist skin, and that would be, look at this here. Earthworm is correct, earthworm breathes through skin only, but frog breathes through skin as well as through lungs, so it can't be that. Fish and frog, fish breathes through gills, Again, fish breathes through gills. This is only skin, but not both. So over here, leech. Now, leeches belong to the phylum of Platyhelminthes, and in Platyhelminthes, they are all going to be breathing through their general body surface. So over here, both the leech and the earthworm are correct, where they breathe only and only through their moist skin. The earthworm has a moist cuticle. Okay, earthworm has a moist cuticle to be breathing from. Alright. Next, which one is not a step in respiration? Well, remember that whole mechanism of respiration that we had done. So, pulmonary ventilation, well, air comes in and air goes, that is correct. Okay, let's not tick mark it. Okay, alright. So, that is correct. Then, transport of gases definitely does happen. Utilization of carbon dioxide by cells for catabolic reactions. Did we, whenever we studied all about the respiratory system, have we ever spoken about how carbon dioxide is being utilized into the respiratory, into those catabolic reactions? What are catabolic reactions? Reactions in which breakdown is happening. So, we are not talking about that when we are talking about respiration. Alveolar diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, this is correct. So, our answer actually, that what is not involved in respiration would be the third one. Okay, the remaining three are a part of respiration. Alright, next question. Oxygen binding to hemoglobin is, now oxygen binding to hemoglobin. Now the question here is that, let's just try to understand that when oxygen is binding to hemoglobin, when will oxygen stay with hemoglobin? When the body does not require. Okay, when will hemoglobin allow oxygen to go? When the body will require it. When will the body require? Okay, so body will require oxygen. Body will require oxygen. During which two conditions? Either you can say that when oxygen is going to be less in that area, or you can say when carbon dioxide in that area has increased. Okay, both of these could happen. So let's look over here. Is it directly proportional to carbon dioxide concentration? Yes or no? Tell me that. If at all, oxygen binding capacity to hemoglobin, if oxygen is tightly bound to hemoglobin, is it because carbon dioxide is also high? No, it would be opposite in fact. Directly proportional to carbon monoxide concentration? No, inversely proportional to carbon dioxide concentration. So, which means that if carbon dioxide is high, do you think that the oxygen binding also would be high? Wouldn't that be wrong? So, if at all, and independent of carbon monoxide concentration. The correct answer here, look at the first option which we discussed again, directly proportional to carbon dioxide concentration. Yes, if carbon dioxide is more, do you think that oxygen will stay bind to hemoglobin? Do you think so? No. If carbon dioxide is less, then what will happen to oxygen and hemoglobin? It will let go of it, which means that, if carbon dioxide is more, again, if it is carbon dioxide concentration is more, then it would be inversely proportional, which would be the correct option. Carboxyhemoglobin is produced due to, why is carboxyhemoglobin produced? When hemoglobin is combining with, which one of those? Do you remember those? When we talk about hemoglobin, okay, I said that it combines with carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide and oxygen. With carbon monoxide, it forms carboxyhemoglobin. With carbon dioxide, it forms carbamino-haemoglobin, and with oxygen, it forms oxyhemoglobin. Okay, so here carboxyhemoglobin would be the correct answer. Carboxyhemoglobin is produced due to hemoglobin combining with carbon monoxide. Alright, next question. The oxygen carrying capacity of blood is reduced by what? Oxygen carrying capacity. When would the oxygen not be carried forward with the help of, or when would oxygen not be carried forward? Due to which substance would oxygen not be carried forward? Well, Oxygen carrying capacity would be reduced by which one? Would it be carbon dioxide? Would carbon dioxide reduce that oxygen carrying capacity, or carbon monoxide? Shouldn't it be carbon monoxide, because carbon monoxide is going to go and attach itself to all the hemoglobin molecules, which would mean that the hemoglobin will no longer attach itself to oxygen over there, which would reduce that carrying capacity, right? Enzyme essential for transport of carbon dioxide as bicarbonate in blood is. Do you remember this enzyme? This is an enzyme that I told you was present in the RBC. And what did it do? This is the enzyme which made carbon dioxide combined with water. Okay, and the enzyme was carbonic anhydrase. And it formed carbonic acid. Okay, so the correct answer would be C, carbonic acid. Coming to, alright, so now children, this is the end. We have completed all of our MCQs for today, and in tomorrow's lecture we will be doing a quick recap of all the points that we have discussed until today. And also, we will be doing some extra MCQs. Please remember that on Saturday, we will be having a test of 10 marks, okay? Only 10 MCQs will be there. I request you to solve that test, okay? And whatever doubts that you will be having in that test, please do and come to our platform of Yupp Master, okay? In Yupp Master, there is a course where you have the 10 standard courses. All of our 4 subjects are available over there. So from here, do go to that Yupp Master app and download that courses area. It's completely free right now. So you're able to enjoy all the video lectures that we are uploading right now, and you are able to also take a short test which is there on Saturday, where biology are only 10 questions at all. Now, whatever doubts you have, there is a 24/7 ask your doubt area over there, and I would like you to please do post your doubts there. Some of you have started posting your doubts, which we are solving, and also the remaining also, please do come ask your doubts there. Do watch our maths videos too, and the other subjects as well. Alright. So, I hope you do have a good time watching these lectures, enjoying the time, solving these MCQs, solving the sums in the other subjects too, alright. And also, remember, once we complete this chapter, our next chapter is the circulatory system, and that is an amazing chapter. So children, when we're doing this, don't keep it only to yourselves. Do share this amongst your friends. Do let your friends know about it too. So you all can just watch the videos together, and you never know, maybe Saturday's test might be fun giving together too. So why don't you give this a try during this lockdown period, and you might enjoy yourselves too. Alright, so until our next lecture, do stay home, stay safe, take care, and keep the studying on. Alright, so join us next time here with me at Yupp Master for your biology lectures. Bye-bye.